who first shared their stories in caves, connected art, nature, and science, led us toward new horizons. Who thought to capture motion, spark an engine to life, turn television into a playground. Every day, you create the playful, the functional, and the unexpected. You break down walls and take us to astonishing places. Tell stories, leap borders, and create beauty for tomorrow. Because at Unity, we believe the world is a better place with more creators in it, where everyone has a chance to shape the world.
Creating your game is just the beginning. With Unity Gaming Services, you can build a foundation that brings your game to life. Empower online multiplayer gameplay, create unforgettable social experiences, and connect gamers across the world through positive communication and play. But games don't just launch, they live. With UGS, you can showcase your game and acquire the right players to experience all your game has to offer. To bring your new online community to life, you need to engage players with the right content at the right time. Then get insights to understand what motivates them to play and deliver new personalized experiences. As a game developer, your journey doesn't stop there. With the right tools, you can drive sustainable revenue to bring more of your vision to life. And if you need an extra hand, we're always just a click away. Join studios of all sizes and take your game to the next level with Unity Gaming Services.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our 2021 SAPAC webinar series. Let me just load up my slides here. Welcome from across the region. We cover a very diverse audience from India through to Southeast Asia, through ANZ and Australia, New Zealand, Pacific Islands. We're here with you every week. Many of you are regular attendees. Just a few tips for interaction in today's webinar. Please do not use the chat for questions. We just use the chat for links to social media sites and any other communications or resources that we share throughout the course of the webinar. And I noticed someone just raised their hand, so there's a note there. We don't use the raise hand function in the webinar. Please refrain from doing so. And all questions and answers should go into the Q&A box on the bottom right-hand side if you're a Zoom attendee. And for those who are joining us on YouTube Live, please put it in the comments section and they will be relayed to the live Q&A at the end of the session. Just a reminder, we're giving away a prize pack, Unity swag pack, for one of the lucky attendees from today's live session only on Zoom. Those who have registered and are attending via Zoom are eligible. There's a survey at the end of the form, and there's an option there for you to opt into this. So if you'd like to win a prize pack for attending today, please do so. Link at the end of the webinar. So we're in our October schedule at the moment, very last one for the month, Basic Foundations for Multiplayer Gaming. We're joined today by Nikki from the Singapore office and a team from across other parts of Asia, I believe all from Japan today, who'll be answering Q&A throughout the live session. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Andy.
And just a little preview of the November and December schedule. Most of you are used to getting an email with all of the links for the month at the beginning of the month. This will go out next week. Just a reminder, you need to register separately for each email, for each webinar to be logged in and registered. And we're completing our series on the 10th of December this year. So everything will be in one batch coming to you this week. And there is a preview of the topics. So Nikki, great to have you presenting in one of our webinars this week. Hope to see more of you, and hand over to you. Thanks also to Norberto, Marcus and David for joining us, and take it away.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you. And thanks to team for putting this together as well. So really appreciate it. And most of all, thank you for all the participants, attending this. Happy Friday, everyone. I know it's everyone's favorite day of the week, right? So, hopefully this is a good way to kind of close off your week. So thanks for joining us. We're going to talk a little bit today about multiplayer games and also, the foundations for building games and multiplayer games as well. Not just multiplayer, but even building basic games as well. How do we accelerate that game development? So let me just share the screen now. As we go, hopefully that goes well. Is that coming out right? I hope. Right. So so today we're going to talk a little bit about how can we accelerate your game development, especially multiplayer games as well, right? So we're going to cover a little bit of that over the next 45 minutes or so. Developing games is tough. It's not just the technology behind it, but you also have to come up with the gameplay. Think of creative stuff to keep people interested, and not only that, after you launch your games, it's also difficult. You got to keep your audiences engaged, right? So this is where, as a game developer, I think you probably would see a lot of this challenges in today's gaming environment. Not only do you have to develop your game, get your game ready to launch. After launch, your game is kind of like a living organism, right? You gotta keep feeding it. You gotta keep updating it. You have to, because your players are always hungry for more updated content, new features, new functionality, of course, fix bugs for sure. And a lot of times, a lot of games require a lot of support well after launch, right? Supporting a live game takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, but that's part and parcel of running, launching a game and running the game and evolving the game, right? So that, you can continue to keep your players engaged. You can monetize, your game, and that continues to grow your user base or your player base as well, right? And especially if you are large studios, it's okay. You might have the resources available, but we have worked with a lot of studios, medium, small, large, especially the smaller and medium ones. It does take a lot of effort to try to maintain all these games, right? About 70% of games, free-to-play games, right? The players usually drop off after one day. That's a very high statistics. Imagine you spend so much time, a year sometimes, or even more, trying to develop your game, and then you launch it. And next thing you know is that your players play for a day and then they drop off. And that's always, always a challenge for us to say, hey, how do we keep our players engaged? How do you keep your players engaged? Right. And a lot of the revenues, a lot of games only start to realize that their revenues come in after after a month. When players start to play for a month, they get hooked on it, and then they realize that, hey, they want to buy in-game currency and all the stuff. They want to do some in-game purchases and so on, right? So what are some of these challenges that you identify with? I mean, we see this three as some of the three common challenges with game developers today. I think the first of which is the fragmentation of services. You see a lot of the different services being used for building your games, such as some of the backend services, live ops services, as well as even game analytics, right? You probably would have to either develop it yourself or subscribe to a variety of different services from different providers and try to integrate all of that together. So that's one of the key challenges. Not only do you have to find the right services available out there, you have to integrate all of this and make sure that it works with your game. And the integration process does take a lot of time, right? There's a lot of overhead that you probably would not be able to kind of cope with actually if you have a small team. The other part of it is data, right? A lot of the data that you have about games, the ads, the crashes are all disjointed. So one of the things that a lot of developers that we work with spend a lot of time on is trying to put all these pieces together. And they spend a lot of time integrating all these different sets of data, right? So that's another key challenge. A third part of the challenge is some of the tools can be quite complicated because they are provided by different vendors. And sometimes the ability to integrate some of these tools are not as seamless as it is because they're provided by a variety of different vendors. So thereby making it a lot more challenging and costly for you to maintain, set up, and support some of these tools as well. Right. So we recognize that, I mean, as Unity, we want to help our creators like yourself, right, become more self-sufficient, become better. We want to take care of some of the stuff that is painful to do, right, on a day-to-day basis. They're not fun. Some of this stuff are not really fun stuff. The fun stuff is creating the games, right? As creators, we like to create. And I think that's the fun stuff, right? But this is the essential stuff, what we call necessary evil. And one of the key things that we recognize as Unity is it does take, sometimes this necessary evil does take a lot of time, a lot of effort away from your actual all the resources that you have, right? So, and that's one of the key things that we hope and we try to be able to help you to address, right? So if you look at the whole gaming life cycle, right? Building is just one part of it. Building is, yes, it is the most exciting part. It is probably the most interesting part and the most fun part of it. But once you build, you need to start connecting, right? You need to connect to a variety of different tools and resources, cloud resources, and so on. And then running it on a day-to-day basis, ensuring that your game continues to engage customers, players. And then at the end of it, ultimately, you need to be able to monetize it, right? So all of this takes a lot of effort, and it's just not just the building phase of it. So we recognize some of these challenges and some of these efforts that go into having the whole life cycle of game getting a game successful, right? And that's where we want to be able to help, and not just to help you to build, but also to connect, operate, engage, and monetize your game so that you can focus on what matters most, is the creation of the game, building the game content, and the whole storyline behind. So that's where Unity Gaming Services was formed, right? We are here to kind of help you to say, hey, how do I accelerate the time it takes for you to launch your game? Because more often than not, the creation process in itself is already tough, right? So we want to say, hey, let us do the heavy lifting for you, the hard part, the non-fun part, right? The boring stuff, but the essential stuff, right? And so that you can kind of accelerate the time you take to launch your game and to be able to build and grow, concentrate on growing the content and putting in new features and so on, right? So that's where we come in. So if you look at the entire game development lifecycle, the conceptualization, the prototyping, that's the fun part. You use our design tool, which we hope that you're using, right, to design the game, create the game, and after which you start to realize, hey, a lot of times, a lot of developers will say, hey, how do I kind of expand it? Now I want to, put in economy within the game. I want to score points. I want to earn currency, right? I want to do in-app purchases, right? So you have, the whole economics behind the game. You have to create that on your own, right? Most of the time, you don't have tools for it. You have to create it on your own. And then if you say, hey, now instead of, I want to store my statistics, I want to store user profiles, I want to store user information. How do I go around storing it? I have to subscribe to, some form of data store. How do I, store code? How do I start, if you start looking at multiplayer games, how do I start doing matchmaking? How do I ensure that my infrastructure can scale if I want to have a multiplayer game? Because, ideally you want it to, if your game becomes very, very successful, is what we hope that your game will be, then you have to ensure that your infrastructure is able to scale really, really quickly. How do you get, you'll be faced with challenges as to how do you get your content to a variety of different locations very, very quickly as well. So we see the entire life cycle from, conceptualization to pre-production to production to live ops. There are a lot of components in there that you have to pay attention to. And by working with a lot of game developers and publishers out there, we do see that there's a lot of areas that is essential, but it is not sexy, right? And that's where we hope to be able to kind of help our clients or help our developers like yourself to be able to address. So throughout this presentation, we'll start to go into some of those areas where we are concentrating in from a game services standpoint, and we hope that those components and those offerings and services can also be utilized by you so that you can accelerate the time it takes for you to roll out your games, right? So from backend services to multiplayer services to player engagement to growth and to monetization as well, monetizing your game. So you see a lot of different boxes here. Everyone is a different set of offerings, which I'll cover in a little bit more detail throughout the course of this presentation, right? So basically, that's what we do. Unity Gaming Services is a division that I belong to and a number of us belong to that is set up to kind of help our developers like yourself accelerate, make it easy for you to roll out your games, taking care of all the hard stuff, the hard and unsexy stuff for you, and to be able to make cross-platform multiplayer games more viable for a lot of developers, because it is tough. A lot of times when people build games, they say, hey, building a single player game is easy or not that difficult, right? But once you want to start going into multiplayer games, it becomes a lot more complex. You have to worry about scaling, network latency and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So how do you take care of that? And we want to be able, that's what Unity Gaming Services, that's what we're trying to do to help you, to enable you to do that a lot more easily. Right, so let's look at some of the case studies here. I think I always like to use case studies to start with, right? This is just one publisher, Team 17. They have, some of you might be playing this game or have heard of this game called Overcooked, right? All you can eat. And the main challenge was how do they want to, how do they launch their multiplayer titles across the most popular platforms today, mobile devices, across Android, iOS, and so on, right? And they decided to entrust their server hosting to Multiplay. This is where our infrastructure as a service comes into play to allow them to scale very, very quickly up and down at the lowest cost possible, right? So then they can kind of iterate and focus on delivering the game content rather than ensuring that the infrastructure can scale. So they came to us to use our infrastructure services to ensure that they can scale quickly, so that the players, when they're playing, they don't experience performance issues, they don't experience being kicked out of the server, which is a big no-no, because then people get kind of unhappy and you lose that player, right? So this is what the deputy head of programming department says, right? Multiplayer allows them to avoid a lot of pitfalls that they might have to do to start up on their own, because a lot of studios and developers don't have infrastructure specialists to configure and scale servers and so on. And this is where they came to us and say, hey, Unity, why don't you take care of all of this for us, right? So that we can focus on the game content. So this is just one example, right? Another example is Fall Guys, right? This is another game, you might have come across as well, you might be playing, right? Again, how do they ensure that they can scale? And again, they use our multiplayer infrastructure. They came to us, and as a result, they're able to scale to over 1 million peak concurrent users, players in 24 hours with multiplayer. And also because of the multiplayer environment, they need to be able to matchmake players. So we do have a component called Matchmaker that allows the game to matchmake players together so they can play as a group, right? So those are all pre-built upfront, so that you don't have to spend time creating a matchmaking engine for your multiplayer games as well. So this is what the CTO mentioned, right? So they're very happy with us, and we're helping them continue to ensure that their games run nicely and smoothly, so that again they can concentrate on what matters to them most. Another one, NFL Clash. This is another game by Nifty. In this case, it's a different case study in the sense that they want to, because they have constant updates to their customers, and they always want to have a reliable content management and storage system to ensure that the content is distributed quickly and where the players are, right? So they use our cloud content delivery to deliver the latest patches, the latest updates, and remote config and a couple of these tools out there, so that they're able to roll out new changes very, very quickly to their players, new versions to their players, without affecting player experience. right? So again, their motivation was to remain nimble and update content over the air without having to submit a new build every time, which takes time and a lot of testing and so on. So being able to test content in real time without affecting the live players, right? So that's what our solutions allowed them to do. And they continue to be a happy customer of ours today, right? So this is where, these are some of the different I would say offerings that we have within Unity Gaming Services today. From a variety, you've heard of multiplayer, you heard of earlier on cloud content delivery, as we call CCD. But as you look throughout the list, and some of them are in beta right now, they're in open beta, you're free to try it out and test it as well. It is a comprehensive list of offerings to help you to, build your game and accelerate your, your game building process so that it can launch a lot faster. Right, so here you see we're looking at all the different components that are essential to building and launching games, especially multiplayer games. And we want to be able to say, hey, these are all the components that are already pre-built so that you can use it. You don't have to develop it from scratch and include it as part of your game itself, thereby allowing you to launch your game a lot faster than you normally would if you were to build it yourself. So I'll just cover a little bit. First, we start with the game backends, right? So if you look at the game backends, you would have stuff like, we start with CloudSafe. So what is CloudSafe? CloudSafe is a service to save your persistent player data, such as your game progress from a game into the cloud. So it becomes independent of device. So for example, if you're having a game that a multi-platform game, for example, where you start maybe at home, in your living room playing on a console, and then you say, hey, I want to go in front of my PC and continue to play games because someone wants to use a TV, right? You can just continue, and that game data can be saved in the cloud, right? So, and after you play for a while, you may have to go out and say, if you are in a taxi and you want to continue playing your game on your mobile device, you can continue again, and all the data is all saved in the cloud. And that's what CloudSafe allows you to do. Is cloud-based, and the player data is accessible anywhere across all devices, so that you don't have to worry about data loss. We manage all of that for you, and the player can change device, reinstall the game, change data. If they move from one PC to another, one device to another, they can continue playing the game without having to recreate that character or that user again, right? And that improves player experience, right? So, and your player data is it's up in the cloud, so it also prevents cheating, right? For example, so that's another thing that you can do as well, because with CloudSafe, right? So that's one of the things that we're looking at, or we are offering to our clients, and some of our clients are using it and benefiting from that as well. So the other one is Cloud Code. Usually it's used in combination, right? So in this case, the code is actually kept in the cloud, as easy as the name says it is, right? So in order to be a modern game, in order to be successful, a lot of times, you want to keep the code in the cloud primarily for a variety of reasons. You can change it really quickly. You don't have to get your users to kind of download new patches every time there's an update, right? And also you want to also it can also lead to security issues, right? If the code is sitting on end user devices, you can introduce a lot of unnecessary complexity for updating, and also for people potentially cheating, right? Which is one of the key complaints for a lot of players nowadays, right? Hacking into games and trying increasing the currency that they really have, especially now more and more so, where currency becomes almost real, because they can sometimes be exchanged as non-fungible tokens, NFTs, and so on, right? So there's a need more and more so to be able to isolate your game logic away from the client device, right? And also because especially more so if you're developing your game for a variety of different devices as well, and you want to enable crossplay, right? So that's one of the key components where you can use, one of the key tools that you can use to be able to enable you to do that, right? So then you can instantly update your game logic without requiring the player to update their installed version, and again, prevent people from kind of hacking into the code, changing their state, cheating, right? And that's what you want to be able to address, to manage and improve your player experience, right? And also prevent people from reverse engineering your game logic as well, right? So that's one of the key things for Cloud Code and Cloud Safe itself. And moving forward, you also would have, every game, I would say, you earn points, you earn currency, right? So game economy allows you to do that. Instead of creating your own wallet and all that stuff, we provide a means for you to, it's already created, where you can store currencies, you can have your currency work across different game titles that you publish as well, right? Whether it's inventory items, whether it's currency, whether it's in-app purchases, right? The game economy is built to be able to manage all of that for you as well. So you can concentrate on, again, not creating a wallet for from scratch. It's already built in, and you can just use it as an SDK, and include that in your game as well, right? So economy is another component, another building block for helping you to build games really, really quickly, right? So then you have remote config. So remote config is a cloud service that allows you to turn your game design, to modify or tune your game design without deploying a new version of your application, right? It consists of a set of namespace key value parameters where you can actually optimally define a set of values that override or add to these parameters. So you can configure your games in real time, change parameters, change your game for different types of players, tune your game difficulty curve in near real time, right? And based on, and roll out as many new features as you want while monitoring the impact. So you can roll something out and test it, and then you can monitor what the impact is, right? So that's what remote config allows you to do. You can tune your game settings to different regions or different player segments as well, right? So in certain regions, maybe the latency is a little bit slower. You want to be able to tune so that everyone gets about consistent latency. That's what you can also do, right? And then of course you can say turn on a Halloween promotion program, right? So say if you do something now, this Halloween promotion or this Black Friday promotion, you get 50% off for in-app purchases. You can do that in real time as well, right? So that's what remote config allows you to do, and it allows you to run promos and so on in real time, right? So these are some of the components that can help you if you want to do all of that. Instead of coding it from ground up, we have pre-built components for you to be able to assemble all of this for your game. And then we talk about multiplayer suite. You heard of multiplayer, right? So multiplayer is basically an infrastructure as a service. It allows you to host your game, your multiplayer games, and it allows you to scale. And we have servers all across the world in different regions. So if you have a requirement for, say, a server in Malaysia or in Indonesia and in Vietnam, we do have instances in those countries, and thereby allowing you to have better performance, for better player experience in those countries without having to rely on the cloud server somewhere else, right? So we work on a hybrid architecture where it's a combination of bare metal and cloud. So you get more predictable performance and more predictable scalability as well, right? So that's multiplayer. The other one that a lot of games are already using is Vvox. A lot of games require in-game chat, multiplayer games, right? For coordination, where groups of people are working together, and an in-game, I would say real-time, in-game 3D in-game communication. That's where Vvox comes in. It covers across all different, I would say, platforms, whether it's console, whether it's mobile, whether it's PC, right? And we are starting to also build in anti-toxicity features to ensure that you can add some of these features. Stay tuned for that. That's coming in. But right now it's used by a variety of games, a lot of games in the market for multiplayer games, for people to communicate, especially teams of players to communicate with each other, right? So Vvox is another one that you don't have to build it yourself. You can just include it, right? And that's part and parcel of the game itself, of multiplayer services itself. Then you look at Relay, which is currently in beta. There are some games where you can say, hey, I don't want to host it on a single server, right? I need a peer-to-peer way of doing multiplayer games. So Relay offers game developers like yourself to securely provide connectivity between players by using a join code style of workflow, right? Without really needing to invest in a third-party solution. So the Relay service enables you to connect players using a listening server, right? So instead of using dedicated game servers, the Relay service provides connectivity through a universal Relay server acting as a proxy. So you have a proxy, it connects to a variety of different users or your players, and it connects different players together so that it allows them to play in a multiplayer fashion, right? So it facilitates multiplayer support without having dedicated game servers. That's what Relay does for you. So no two players will ever connect directly to each other. So all communications will go through the Relay server. And that's what Relay allows you to do multiplayer games from a peer-to-peer fashion, right? So that's currently in beta. You're free to try it out as well. Lobby is another key component of building multiplayer games. We noticed that in multiplayer games, normally a number of, a lot of times people build lobbies for players that they can join together. And the lobby service gives you the functionality to create and manage rooms and players within rooms itself. And the users can also create their own rooms, right? So, and either public or private rooms, and then invite other players, and so on and so forth, right? So you can have a lobby for all your friends that you have within the game, right? So it's a REST API that can be connected to any game, and regardless of the connection topology, right? So that works hand in hand with authentication, which it's not here. It's also in beta at the moment. Authentication is actually a service that allows you to manage your logins as well. So we have that as another building block to enable you to, instead of building your own logins and authentication service, we created authentication as a module itself that you can then include within your games, and it integrates well with any of the public sign-ons like sign in with Google or sign in with Apple or sign in with Facebook, right? So it's compatible with all of that as well. And then there's Netcode, right? So if you are developing applications where you need network tuning and all that stuff, that's where Netcode comes in, right? So Netcode again allows you, it's a foundation for you can rely on to help you to manage your network features within the game itself, with giving you a layer extraction on top of the basic network layer as well. So again, for multiplayer, that's a key criteria, key condition, one of the toughest thing to do. And that's where we hope to be able to provide that to our developers like yourself to abstract the networking, I would say, difficulties, right? And you can focus on, again, building that multiplayer game. So just to have a look, if you look at the scale, the community and the matchmaking part of it, this is just an example of some of the publishers or some of the games that make use of some of these building blocks. So these are not new, right? I want to repeat that. You see some in beta and so on, but even though Matchmaker is in beta, right, it is being used already. So it's battle tested. I mean, Apex Legends have got millions and millions of users, concurrent users or concurrent players running at any one time, right? So they use multiplayer, we're able to scale really, really quickly, right? Fall Guys, another massively online multiplayer game as well, right? And you got Valorant as well, right? So they use VVox. So the clients that use VVox are people like PUBG, Valorant, Rainbow Six Siege. So a lot of it's all battle tested. They're not new. They're not hey, this is fresh out. We have battle tested a lot of the solutions already. Right. So again, so we talk a little bit about the game backend, and we talk a little bit about the multiplayer components. Just give me a second, just take a drink of water. So now we look at the next part of it after you launch a game, right? So one of the key things about launching your game is how do you ensure that you keep your players coming back for more, right? Besides having great content. Besides having great, storylines and so on, right? You want to be able to ensure that you maximize your player retention, right? So what analytics we've had analytics actually. Analytics, although you see it's beta, analytics is not new to Unity. We have a variety of different analytics solutions in the past. And currently a lot of almost probably our claim to fame is Delta DNA, right? A lot of publishers are using Delta DNA to optimize their gaming analytics. But what we've done with this latest platform that's in beta is we combine all the different functionalities and make it a lot more easy to use for our developers like yourself, right? So what analytics does is that it's a complete platform that provides end-to-end data analysis that is used to support your entire game studio. So it allows you to understand things like, the core metrics of the health of your game, whether it's new installs, whether it's the daily active users, your DAUs, your MAUs, your monthly active users, total number of concurrent sessions at any one time, how many sessions per user, how many times the user log in, how much time is spent in the app, when did they, leave the app, what's the most common page that everyone leaves the app, right? And user segments by country, by platform, whether iOS, Android, PC, or which version they play, right? So it captures all of these insights really, really quickly with pre-built dashboards, and it provides visualization to you for real-time data analysis, right? So then you can use custom events to track actions specific to your games. And we provide consulting as well behind that. So they say, how do you use this data? How do you modify your game, right? To be able to increase your retention rates? Do you add, certain features, you add advice to get them beyond the first 2 pages or the first 2 steps, right? There's Data Explorer for you to be able to see your key matrices, filter, do multi-dimensional analysis, understand how your game changes as you add new features over time, and then allows you to view and engage with different segments, right, of players that you have, right? And then we have standard and custom events that allow you to track and view in-game behavior, right? So this is what analytics does for you, so that you can run deeper analysis on your players and your segment of players, and then thereby increasing your revenue per player. I mean, we've worked with a variety of different studios. There was one where they were averaging about 2 cents per player, and we managed to, by using Unity Analytics, they managed to increase that to about 10 cents per player. So that's like 5-time increase in the revenue per player, right? So that's one of the key advantages of using analytics for your games after you launch your games as well, right? So then there's Cloud Diagnostics. So Cloud Diagnostics is more to allow you to collect data and identify issues that your users encounter within your apps. So with Cloud Diagnostics, you can collect crash data, you can collect exception reports, whether it crashes and so on. So then it allows you to identify and prioritize your issues, right? I think one of the key things is always about player experience, right? And one of the key things is to ensure that, your game doesn't crash where your player just accumulate a whole bunch of currency and then they lose it, right? So you want to be able to address some of those bugs really, very quickly. And that's where Cloud Diagnostics allows you to, kind of get insights into the performance of your game and prioritize all those issues and help you to resolve some of those issues really, really quickly, right? So that's what Cloud Diagnostics does. And again, around player experience, cloud content delivery, right? So it's a service that is designed, it's a managed cloud service that hosts and deliver your content to all your application users globally without having to install a new version of the application, right? So instead of saying, hey, now it's time to patch, now it's time to download a new version, because every time you roll out something, new features or patches and so on, you want them to be able to instantly access the game rather than maybe sometimes having to wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes to download, and they run out of time and patience. They say, okay, forget it, I'm not going to play today, right? Because that's all the time that they have to play, right? So that allows you for more instantaneous access to or more real-time updates, so that I would say reduce the time it takes to for your players to access the game, the new versions of the game, and it's fully integrated into the Unity development platform, saving you months of building and maintaining your own similar service, right? So CCD is probably is very valuable. It's very content rich for live games and allow you to manage all your content and provide regular updates on a regular basis. So this is these are not new stuff that we say, hey, you're customer number one, right? We have customers who are using it and they've tested it and they really like it, right? So you see a variety of different games here. They use Delta DNA. We've taken Delta DNA, all the functionality, and make it a lot more easier to use in the beta version of the current analytics, right? So the 2 cent to 10 cent version is for this hyper casual game called Wordscapes. So I'm not giving you a I would say imaginary customer. This is also a real customer case from this producer or this publisher called People Fun, right? And this is the case study, right? So it took the MAU base from 10,000 to 2 million and 10 cents per customer, right? Per user. So imagine what's the revenue potential to that. So on the back of that, of course, monetization. So monetization, Unity, this part I think is probably the more well-known part of it. Unity ads, user acquisition, in-app purchases, and now we just launched mediation that allows you yourself to connect to a variety of top ad networks to your game, and then you are able to then set new strategies, more advanced strategies to maximize your monetization. Right. And behind all of that is not just tools, right? I mean, Unity is here to help you to ensure that your game becomes successful, right? So there is a lot of consulting services that we can provide and advice because we work with so many game studios and we want you to be successful, right? And that's the reason why we provide expert support as well to ensure that if you use any of our components or if you ever need help, say, hey, how do I use analytics to better target my audience, whether my game is hyper casual or whether it is a battle royale, depending on different genres of game that you're creating. We do have different strategies for how you use analytical data as well. And again, a variety of different consulting services to say, how do you set up multiplayer? How do you set up matchmaking? How do you set up peer-to-peer networking? How do you optimize your networks? So we are here to help, right? So we've worked with a lot of clients, big and small. So again, we're not just going to troll and say, these are all the tools, go use it yourself. Of course, they're all free to, you can go and try it out for yourself. But do remember that there's always us, here that can help you, give you any advice that you need to help you to become successful. Right. So why Unity Gaming Services? I think you heard over the last half an hour or so of me rambling about all the different components. I know there's a lot to digest of what you heard just now, right? And we can, if you are interested, we probably I'll work with Andy to see whether we can drill down into each of the other in detail, each of the different components, right, for future sessions as well. But in a nutshell, why do we exist? Why does Unity Gaming Services exist? We exist because we recognize that building games is complex, right? Creating games itself, the creative part of it is fun. It's really, really fun and it's really complex. But then to launch your game, to make it multiplayer, to have all this authentication, economy part of it, to run it, to have communications, trying to build all of this yourself can be undaunting. And we've worked with enough studios for them to tell us, hey, Unity, if you have something like this, we're more than happy to take all these components, all these building blocks, and put it together as part of our game so that they can focus, right? Or you can focus on the fun part of building the game, right? And that's where we come in. We'll take care of all the hard stuff, all the heavy lifting and the boring, unsexy stuff, right? And we'll take care of all that for you. So by combining the two together, we hope to be able to, shorten the time it takes for you to launch your game, and at the same time also reduce the cost for you to build your game as well, right? From creation to launch, and also after launch to maximize your retention rates and your user base, and also the monetization of your game. So it is a single platform with a lot of components in there. You can pick and choose, whichever that suits you or whichever you need. And hopefully that will help you. And that's where we see our customers benefiting, helping them to be able to, focus on what matters to them most. So how do you get started? very simple. There is for a lot of the services, there are free tiers, and there's also open beta services for free right now for most of those that are in beta that you saw just now. Check out our solution web pages. You go to our website, you look at Unity gaming services, all of it is there. If you have any questions, feel free to contact any of us. We have our launch blog, our technical documentation is all available online, and check out our gaming services FAQ. Right, and with that, I conclude today's session. I thank you very much for your time, and I think we are now open for questions and answers. There are a couple of open questions. I'm not sure whether they are being addressed at the moment. So the first one, okay, that is okay. Can someone spot the light on how we stay connected in the background in mobile device using multiplayer? David, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. I guess staying connected in the background in mobile would be pretty dependent on the design of the game. What sort of information needs to be synchronized, or what sort of reconnection strategy that you want to implement. I guess kind of we might need a few more details regarding that. Is there like a concrete example that you would like a clarification on?
So aside from that, I think that how the voice call works in multiplayer games, I think that's the other question. I think David's answering that at the moment. Good. And
yes, yeah, voice communications provided through Vivox has kind of clients using the SDK join kind of groups of communication called channels over a backend server. It's kind of like a PBX box on a server, and it's basically that kind of controls like who's in communication in what channel, and all that voice data being transmitted would be through that backend server.
so what software should we use for multiplayer development? I would say Unity. You can use any others, but our preference, of course, is for you to use Unity.
So we have a smaller number of questions than we normally do in our weekly webinars today. I think most of them are answered there.
There are a couple more. Yeah. Are there built-in solutions for dealing with latency, like input prediction and data compression? So part of those, David, do you want to take that? Part of those is addressed by a variety of different things, right? Like Netcode. Multiplayer has some of those also.
Yes, this would be most likely on the netcode for game objects. However, there are many features that the team is working with, and currently the feature set available is showcased in more of like a co-op sort of environment, but more for kind of very competitive, very high. Well, I guess that co-op environment is a little bit more latency tolerant versus some of the very kind of low latency required games, competitive games, and those features are kind of being fleshed out, and those solutions will be unveiled in the future.
And then there is, if you want to make a multiplayer game, so do we have to make a different code, or Unity will do it for us? David, you want to take that? Or Norberto or Marcos? Anyone?
Let me double check. Uh, in terms of yeah, the code, our services are platform agnostic, so it doesn't really have to be Unity. You depending on some of the services, if they're still in beta, unfortunately, we only do have SDKs provided for the Unity engine. However, for some of the services such as multiplay, it is platform agnostic. It does not matter what sort of binary you have. And in most cases, the developer will need to create their binary or their code for what they want to run on the services.
There is another question. Is crossplay supported? Yes, it is. Crossplay is supported, especially if you use a lot of the cloud components, right? So if you use more cloud components, it is supported. The Unity engine supports crossplay, right? So if you use the Unity tool to create your game, it supports crossplay as well. You develop once and you can deploy on any platform. In a multiplayer game, one player has some interruption like a phone call or something else in the background for a few minutes on how can we stay connected during this interruption. So for me, and I think feel free to add on the technical guys, right? The technical team who are more intelligent than me, right? For me, it all depends on your timeout, right? Within your game, how do you time out the user when there's inactivity, right? So you can set timeout latency, the timeout to be longer so that, it depends on your timeout tolerance, if that makes sense. Correct, David?
Yeah, I believe it also really depends on your game. If you were playing a shooter and you are away for 3 minutes, would you just have them sitting there, or would you have them disconnect and then have like a reconnection strategy? So if it's within a certain amount of time, that they will be able to reconnect to the server and join in with their avatar instead of having a free kill for the other team every time. It really depends on how you want to implement how the game is supposed to be run, and also how you want to implement your reconnection strategy.
Okay, there's one. What kind of data is available from dashboard? Data export.
I guess this might depend what sort of data you are kind of exporting. Some of the data available is more for our analytics side. You will be able to kind of query through sort of the events that are occurring within your game through the events that are captured through the analytics SDK. I guess if that's the sort of data that you're kind of expecting, then those sort of game analytics data would be available. And that product is not too much of my specialty, but they do have features that allow you to kind of export your data to different sort of kind of analytics tools that, or if you have like your in-house one, you could put those data together in your in-house, or you could look at your data on our dashboard.
Yep, that's correct. With crossplay, that's across everything, as in consoles, PS, Xbox. Yep. In a single, when we say crossplay, it's across all devices. So mobile, iOS, Android, PlayStation, Xbox, Switch. Did I miss anything up? PC, right? Mac OS. Yep, and potentially VR. Yes, potentially VR, AR, like Oculus Rift as well. Okay, for multiplayer, do we have to connect to a specific region? So I think I'll defer that to my technical team, I guess, again.
This we have many different partners and data center partners across the globe. And for those locations, you're not really restricted to like a region, because these are all locations. So how you want to cut your region is really dependent on your player base and where you want to serve your players. And we will try to best fit our locations to support your regions and how you group your players.
So Ranchit, you're saying, but how multiplayer games connect the players? Well, it depends on how you log on to the your game server, or you use Relay, it's peer-to-peer, then you use peer-to-peer connection. But if you log on to the game servers, then everyone's playing within the game itself. And then of course you want to do matchmaking, you can use Matchmaker. You want to use lobby, the facility, you can use the lobby facility to connect or get all your players within the same lobby. So there are a variety of different areas depending on how your game is built. But those facilities are there. I hope that answered your question. And then I think email, I think you have to go through our marketing. Our marketing can provide that for you. All questions will be directed through our marketing team after this as well. Two more open questions. Are there plans to integrate with DOTS networking when that's more mature? I believe there is. Right, David?
Currently, it is definitely on the roadmap, but I believe the bigger focus is more on Netcode for game objects, which is a bit of a different concept versus DOTS networking.
Mm-hmm. So are there tricks to handle specific country-based rules on data acquisition and retention? That one depends on where you launch your games, and you have to be cognizant of the countries that you launch in, what the regulations of each of the countries. So that's why we have, it's not built into Unity multiplayer, right? But we can do some consulting with you and say, hey, if you are launching in certain countries where there's GDPR requirements and so on, we can kind of help you on that part of it, where you should be placing your servers, right? So I hope that helps. Unity account suspension, I think that one you have to contact our marketing team on that one. Yeah, Andy's replying.
Okay, looks like it's all of the questions. So just one last reminder, the survey form in the chat window, if you could please complete that, helps us to better guide content and deliver content that our users want across the region on a weekly basis. And thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, big shout out to Nikki, Marcos, David, Norberto for joining us today from across the region. Other regions don't normally join us in our weekly webinar content, and was a slightly different, more business related topic today. So if this was useful for you, please let us know in the survey form. If you'd like to see more of this kind of content, also let us know. And thank you very much. We will see you next Friday.